Alright, Section 9, Fusion Bronze Welding. TM 55-285, you War Department Technical Manual Operation Railroad General Inspection, and Maintenance Rolling Stock. Chapter 3, Section 9, Fusion Bronze Welding. General Regulations, Qualification, Operation Rule Number 63, Welding and any profit required of utmost good judgment on the part of the welding operator. Operator's ability to perform satisfactory work of the question and process selected will be certified with the mechanical officer in charge with the basis for the testing of the welding qualifying welder. There's preparation rule number 64. The edge of the piece of the weld will be illustrated in figure 106 and 107. If both sides of the fracture membered or acceptable fracture will be prepared as in figure 106. When only one side of the fracture member is accessible with the figure 107, will be followed with the entire crack of the fracture will be cut, chipped, ground out, and so that no portion of the crack remains. And surface upon the new material is to be deposited will be clean, reasonable, smooth. The surface prepared with the flame cutting oxide scale removed from the welding is. And then we're going to flip this and just take a quick view. Alright, this shows your overall journal length of the standard axle limits of the HD, C, E, and F, and G. Shows axle designation 3 3/4 inch by 7 and 66 44, and then the limited wheel limits for the reach and the new dimensions, and it goes all the way up to 6.5 by 12 inch axle designation. Shows a ruler 6 7/8 inch, 5/16 of an inch, 3 and it's an adjustable ruler. Note at this end against the axle of the collar, an axle collar ruler, and then it should be A should be to be enough to obtain the full fusion in bottom of the V. Shows a double V groove and a single V groove. And figure 108, complete weld with the contour 106, complete weld with the contour 107, and figure 109 and 108. Should show their bevel. Alright, begin. On multiple iron, cast iron, flame cut with the surface effect of the air will remove the chipping of the grinding welding procedure rule number 65 of the arc welding. The proven and perceived that may be used if in good practice to employ with the multiple pass welding in layers of approximately 1/8 of an inch thick laid with a slightly oscillating movement of the electrode. Oxyacetylene welding and bronzing welding will be deposited will be made with a single pass. Weld contour rule number 66 completed. Welds will follow the contour and shown in figure 108 and 109. Heavy reinforcement not necessary for the weld to be not produced and not effective at the junction of the weld parent material. Every precaution will be taken to avoid abrupt or change within section thickness of the line fusion. E. Building up a worn surface of the rule number 67. The worn surface is built up with the new metal will be made clean and reasonable smooth. The deposit of the metal will be addressed in required dimension. F. Heat treatment. Heat treatment after welding. Rule number 68. 1. Parts will be annealing. Normalized stress relieving as required will be heated to uniformly specified with the temperature at a minimum rate of 1 hour per inch. Of the thickness of the material will be held with the temperature of not less than 1 hour. The temperature of the furnace material will be measured with the pyrometers. 2. For annealing of the temperature 1500 degrees heat by 1600 heats performed with the furnace of the material will remove the live with the cool with the still air with the local stress relief of the material and permissible with the heating of the part with the red hot with the blowtorch and allowing it to cool and still air. 46. Welding limitations. Rule number 69. Welding either the electrical oxyacetylene process permitted on parts limitation referred in paragraph ND below, except for the parts made with a high alloy steel subject to severe embrittlement, not welded with an fusion heat applied with them. This will not be construed to include low alloy, high tension steels, nor acceptable welding product. The heat-treated carbon steel will not be welded nor have fusion heats applied to them unless such part can be reheated, treated, duplicating the original heat temperature after welding to restore the former properties. B. Car parts other than listed in the welding limitations may be repaired with welding provided the welded metal joint exceed the physical property of the section welded. Whether permissible, the welded malleable iron parts mandatory to use oxyacetylene or equivalent gas of the bronze welding process for making and repair with the section subject to the tensile strength for the malleable iron section subject to compression stresses only will be permissible to use the arc welding process. Personnel engaged welding operators will be observed with the following limitations specified with the parts. Arch bars and trucks are limitations no welding permitted. Axles, bill of the worn recommended collars is permitted. The electrical welding preferred to finish thickness of at least 3/8 of an inch thick, but not exceeding new dimension. Do not weld crack and fractures welded on an entire crack and collar and build up the surface other than the end of the collars. Bolsters and cast steels. Boiled up the worn surface of the permissible, provided with the material remaining in the part of the key is equal to 60% of the original section. The heat of the treatment did not require no restriction of the welding, crack the fractures, or complete break. Parts will be removed from the car before welding and normalized after welding. Bolster, press structural seal, no restriction, brace and bodies, no restriction, brake beam tension, members, no welding, cracks or fractures, building up the permitted car lines, no restriction, center place, malleable iron will be removed, the bronze welded, center place cast and forged steel with no restriction, if removed from the car's parts will be stress relieved after welding. Couplers and coupler parts, welding operation will be done only with touch points. The clips with the gauges bring with a reclaim parts with a prescribed limit. The coupler ridge and shank lengths may be restored by welding. Coupler swivel shank length may be restored by welding, will be normalized after welding. Coupler key and slots will be restored by welding when normalized after welding. Couplers, shank and wear. Coupler shank which are worn 1/4 inch but not exceeding 3/8 of an inch depth into the bottom of the wall will be restored by welding, will be normalized after welding. Couplers are worn except for 3/8 of an inch and location will be scraped. Couplers, knuckles, sidewall cracks may be reclaimed welding except for the cracks of the wall back with the knuckle tail extending more than 4 inches above the below the horizontal center of the knuckle side of the wall, measure of the surface of the coupler or section broken out with this area, have the dimension except for 3 inches will be normalized after welding. Coupler guard arms and cracks may be welded, will be normalized after welding. Coupler knuckles worn surfaces may be built up, excess welding metal will be removed with the part of the check with the proper give to ensure interchangeable proper operation. Cracks and fractures will not be welded. Alright, coupler knuckle throwers, worn surfaces may be built up by welding. Coupler locks, worn surfaces may be built up by welding. Coupler locks and lifters, worn surfaces top lock lifter may be restored by the welding. Coupler pins may not, no welding permitted. Couplers, yokes and cast steels. Yoke is removed with the car with the final to be worn, not except for the 1/8 of an inch of the average up with the one strap that will be turned over the reapplied to the car. If the worn excess of 1/8 of an inch is not exceeding 20% of the cross sectional area with the scrap that reached over the welding cast iron vertical yokes. Horizontal key may be welded. The keyway in the wear does not exceed 3/8 of an inch, maintaining the nominal dimension from the inside bell of the yoke to the front of the keyway. Yokes will be normalized after welding, and cracks and fractures may be welded. The provided area of the crack is less than 2/5 or 40% of the total of the area through the section of the point of the fracture, except when the front of the keyway of the strap at the rear of the end of the yoke and front section extending transversely on the top of the bottom of the strap of the cracks of the fractures any of the extent through the web portion from the rear end of the key slot. Either one or both sides may be welded. Yokes will be normalized after welding. Coupler yokes and vertical forged steel. When yoke is removed from the car with found to be worn not except the 1/8 of an inch average depth of one strap, it will be turned over the reapply if the worn except for the 1/8 of an inch and not exceeding 20% of the cross-sectional area of the strap will be restored to welding hole with the worn with excess of the 1/8 of an inch beyond the original diameter, and the beyond the original diameter of the yokes will not be reapplied to the holes of the normal diameter. Yokes will be stress relieved after welding. Draft arms, no restriction. Draft lugs, malleable iron. See paragraph 46C. Draft lugs, cast forward steel, no restriction. Equalizer, truck, no welding, cracker, fracture, truck permitted. Grab iron, no welding permitted. Handbrakes, geared, welding, cracks, fractures, operating parts of power. Handbrakes build up of the horizontal shaft is not prohibited. Is not permitted. However, it does prohibit the forged welding rod extend with the bell crank near the bottom of the car to the handbrake near the top of the car on the handbrake with a braking connecting rod. Hanger brake beam. Cracks, fractures will be welded. The building up of the one of the eyes of the permitted. Hanger, spring, and bolster. Crack fractures will not be welded. The worn area of the built-up provided the material remaining 80%, not less than 80% of the original section will be normalized after welding. Hand bracket brake beam. Cracks and fractures may be welded. Normalized being required if located closer than 1 inch from the inside of the flange of the side frame. Brake hanger brackets may be renewed. Other type of the substituted weld with the normalized being required if the weld is located closer than 1 inch from the inside flange of the side frame, building up the worn holes is prohibited. Heads and brake beam cast steel with no restriction. Heads and brake beam malleable iron. See paragraph 46C. Journal boxes no integral no restrictions. Letters and supports no welding prohibited. Levers and brakes crack fractures will not be welded. The holes may be filled up with the provided material. Remaining part with not less than 80% of the original section. Plates and end or side no restriction. Post ends insides or doors no restriction. Sheet body or roof no restriction. Sills welding permitted. See paragraph C section 4 with the detailed slices. Sill and steps of their support with no welding permitted. Shaft brake no welding permitted. Stakes no restrictions. Spring planks no restrictions set for the thickness of the reduced less than 1/4 inch due to the corrosion. Spring plank will be removed from welding. Tanks of tanker cars, no welding, cracks, or fractures permitted unless the authorized welding metal card holders directly to the tank of the tanker cars is not permitted. Prohibition also applied with the car holders non-secure with such man with when requiring area application account loose of the renewal. Tie bar and truck, no welding permitted. Top cord angle for the open top cars, no restriction. Transom truck, meaning cross member of each side of the bolster, which have a tie with the side frames together that may be welded to place from roofing from the truck line of the car body. Truck sides cast steel. Build up the warrants for the permissible with the material of the remaining with the equal to 60% of the original section welded admissible with the area to crack less than 2/5 or the 40% of the total area through the section of the point of the fracture. Part will be removed from the car before welding and normalized after welding. Truck side permits there are no structural, no restriction. Uncoupling levers, no welding cracks or the fractures permitted. Wheels, brakes, no welding cracks or fracture permitted. Wheel cars or tires, no welding permitted. Location extent of the cracks may be welded. One coupler's transverse crackers include the shrinking cracks of the shank of the coupler located with the 1-inch front of the key slide with include the backing of the wall horn may be welded. No limitation length with the depth of the cracks may be welded. B. Cracks on the guard arm of the front face of the coupler, including the cracks extending with the full length with a face and lock opening with the top of the bottom wall may be welded if the cracks are open more than 1/16 of an inch. A part will be pressed back to the original contour before welding is attempted. Cracks in the knuckle side of the wall may be welded provided do not extend to the BM of the shaded area. Figure 32 with the broken out with the section within the area with the not exceeding 3 inches of the any of the direction may be repaired by welding a piece of the proper shape with the thickness cast steel yokes, cast and straps not closer than 3 inches of the junction of the rear of the yoke may be welded regardless of the extent of the direction of the crack. If the crack extends out, open with the beams with the U to hold the severed end of the proper relation of the welding. Still the length of the strap is and not chain with the cracks anywhere with the front section of the yoke, including key slot, may be welded. The cracks on the rear end of the yokes include 3 inches of the adjacent strap will not be welded. F. General instruction requirement regarding welding of the coupler and cast steel yokes. Welding of the cracks and couplers cast steel yokes will be made with electrical process for the shield arc electrode. Cracks on couplers will be prepared with welding. Single vein, figure 107 and so the weldings will be done from the outside. Cracks in the yokes, both sides of the fracture member are accessible, will be prepared in figure 106 with the weld may be made from the outside. 104, on all case the entire crack will be cut out for the bar enough to the rear so that no portion of the crack will remain with the metal. The surface of the new metal will be deposited with clean, reasonable, smooth. If the gas pocket is encountered with cutting with the crack of the making a weld that cannot be entirely removed, the part will be scraped. The part will be scrapped. Uncouplers well with the rest so that there is no protection on the front face, inside of the guard arm, bottom of the shank, with also no projection of the bead will be allowed inside of the knuckle with the lock cavities that might interfere with the operation of the coupler. 7. The on yokes welded will be dressed flush with the parent metal with the inside outside of the strap and in the key slot. The front end of the key slots will be gauged for the rear bearing surface of the yoke, the inch of the equal length on each side of the yoke so that they will line up properly and assemble. In assembly, after welding, couplers and cast steel yokes will be normalized and furnished using pyrometers, other satisfactory temperature measuring devices. Casting will be heated slowly, uniformly to the temperature 1500-1600 degrees, allowing at least 2 hours to reach this temperature, holding the casting of the temperature for a period of 1.5 to 2 hours. The casting will be removed from the furnace and cooled with the still air. Carrier may be taken and protected with a strong draft of the rains or snow. If no case will be in casting, will any casting be quenched with water or other liquid medium. Chapter 4, Inspection and Maintenance. Testing.